On March 11th, 2022, two friends, Thomas Roberts and James Medway, enjoyed a night out in Bournemouth. They browsed several clubs, consumed a number of drinks, shared cookies and banter with strangers during what they called a very chilled night out. After 4:40 AM on March 12, 2022, the pair looked for a taxi to take them home, but James found a barrel e-scooter propped up against the subway on Old Christchurch Road in Bournemouth. Curious, he quipped to Thomas that they didn't need a taxi, they could instead take the e-scooter. As they looked over the e-scooter, Lawangeen Abdulrahimzai approached the pair. The next 26 seconds saw James and Abdulrahimzai argue. Peacemaker Thomas intervened and slapped Abdulrahimzai in the face, and then Abdulrahimzai stabbed Thomas twice with his gold-handled knife. He fled the scene as his friend James chased after him in Horseshoe Common. Thomas staggered, stumbled and collapsed to the ground. Revellers desperately banged on a nightclub window to get urgent help. Paramedics and police officers arrived, and he was soon rushed to hospital for immediate surgery. Despite their efforts, he passed away at 8:10 AM on Saturday morning. Based on evidence shared at his trial at Salisbury Crown Court, stories written by media outlets, this is the story of the murder of Thomas Roberts. The murderer tortured by the Taliban before he fled Afghanistan, his uncovered murderous past, how the asylum seeker posed as a teenager in Dorset, and how his actions tragically changed the lives of several people. But first, who was he? Abdulrahimzai was approximately born in October 2001, and his exact date of birth is unknown. He said it was normal for people in Afghanistan not to know their dates of birth due to a lack of education, and his uncle had told him the incorrect date. This may explain why some of the dates in this video are a bit sketchy. His parents illegally manufactured and sold alcohol on the black market, and Abdulrahimzai delivered the alcohol. When he was a child, Abdulrahimzai's parents were bombed and killed by the Taliban when they were falsely believed to be working with US forces. He, meanwhile, was not at home during this fatal bombing. When he was a teenager, he was captured and tortured by the Taliban over a 3-week period, which left him covered in scars on his body, mental trauma, and left fearing for his life. The Taliban warned him that they would send their agents from across the world after him. After being left for dead at the side of the road, Abdulrahimzai was arranged to be trafficked out of the country in and around October 2015 by his uncle. This began his journey from Asia and into Europe. After he left his native Afghanistan in October 2015, he entered Pakistan, then into Serbia, and then into Norway. Abdulrahimzai used one of his many fake names, and his fingerprints were taken in the northeastern port city of Trieste, in Italy, in July 2016. In February 2017, he was convicted of 2 drug offences in Italy and handed a suspended prison sentence. He then ended up back in Serbia in June 2017. Between July 31st to August 1st, 2018, a then 16-year-old Abdulrahimzai arrived at a shed near a motorway in Dorset in Serbia. Afghans were staying in a shed in the area when an argument broke out over trafficking migrants to the west. Abdulrahimzai was armed with an AK-47, with 2 other men wielding pistols. Salisbury Crown Court heard how he fired 18 rounds and shot dead 2 Afghan nationals with his rifle. He fled the scene in a taxi and later the country, as Serbian police launched a murder investigation and manhunt for him. The shocking details of the double murder came out during investigations carried out by Dorset police and Interpol in relation to the Thomas Roberts murder probe. It was discovered that Abdulrahimzai had been wanted in Serbia since August 12, 2018, and was tried under the name of Hun Yasin. A trial in his absence found him guilty of murder and illegally carrying a weapon, and was sentenced to imprisonment for 20 years. There was, however, an appeal in February 2021, but the conviction was upheld. Now at this point in the video, you'll be wondering why this incident in Serbia was not mentioned in the trial. Now, if the murders in Serbia were mentioned during the trial, this would have been prejudicial and risked an unfair trial and for it to potentially collapse. The details of the murders in Serbia were heard in a preliminary hearing before the trial, and then immediately after the jury at Salisbury Crown Court found him guilty of murder. The jury was reminded throughout the trial that the focus is on whether or not Abdulrahimzai intentionally meant to murder and kill Thomas Roberts. Abdulrahimzai is back in Norway in October 2018, and he later applied for asylum, but was refused in November 2019. From here, he travels as an unoccupied passenger from France to Poland, Dorset. On Boxing Day 2019, he told the Border Force and the Home Office that he was 14, but he's actually believed to be 18 years old. As an asylum seeker, Abdulrahimzai was placed in the care of foster mother Nicola Merchant-Jones, who described him as shy, a bright lad who suffered from night terrors. He improved his basic English and studied at a local school in the area and grew interested in cricket and sport. Yet the asylum seeker grew to have a Jekyll and Hyde personality during his stay under foster care. Nicknamed Low by his foster mother, he was caught with a knife in JD Sports and also accused of pulling a knife on a group of people at Kings Park in Bournemouth. Police officers visited him at least twice to remind him of the dangers of knives. Miss Merchant-Jones remarked in a statement, "He seemed to think it was his right to carry a knife to defend himself. It was him against the world." Abdulrahimzai grew more violent, and he admitted to his mother that he would be paid for £100 for 10 minutes of street fighting. Footage shared on Snapchat showed him repeatedly punching a man on the floor while being cheered on by an unknown crowd. Abdulrahimzai also shared photos of himself posing with a knife about 10 inches long on TikTok. He claimed he did it to gain more followers on the social media app. This was also the knife that he would later kill Thomas Roberts with. After a heated argument that saw Abdulrahimzai nearly headbutt Miss Merchant-Jones, he left her care and he was moved to another foster family. After this incident, he would also message Miss Merchant-Jones and would apologise for his behaviour. In a statement, she concluded, "He had his anger with the world. He couldn't rationalise when he was angry. He was a little bit paranoid. He is a complex little lad. He has grown up in a world of war and his default is to fight." On March 11th, 2022, the 20-year-old left his address in Hill Street in Poole and travelled on a bus to Bournemouth, where he met up with a group of males. He wore his hoodie, balaclava covering some of his face, and wore an Afghanistan flag around his neck. During the evening, he spent time with the group, spoke to some females, before travelling on a bus to the Castle Lane area. He was also caught on CCTV riding on an e-scooter. Abdulrahimzai returned to Bournemouth town centre in the early hours of March 12th and visited the London Market shop in Old Christchurch Road to buy a drink and a chocolate bar. After 4 a.m, he observed an argument between a drunken reveller and another person outside Cameo nightclub. He did not know either person, but he still intervened and aggressively headbutted the man, known to the court as Beardy Shouting Man. Abdulrahimzai claimed he was not aggressive, and he did not intend to go there and have a fight, but just wanted him to be quiet. Further CCTV footage showed him riding on an e-scooter shortly before the fatal stabbing of Thomas Roberts. But before we outline what happened next, it's important to remember who Thomas Roberts was. Thomas was a 21-year-old man who lived in Bournemouth. In his spare time, he enjoyed boxing, played music as a DJ in local clubs, and was known by friends and family as very outgoing and popular. He worked as a precision engineer and wanted to join the Royal Marines as an engineer and was eagerly awaiting a response to his application. Throughout the murder trial, it was clear how loved and popular Thomas was, not only by his girlfriend, his siblings, his parents, and his friends. His family described him as a young, bright man with a sense of humour and a normal, kind person who enjoyed life. What happened on March 12, 2022 was heartbreaking, and it reminds people of the dangers of knives. This is how Judge Dugdale would describe the incident to court. When he saw the scooter, James Medway joked to Thomas that they did not need a taxi as they could scoot home. He straddled the scooter and took hold of the handlebars to demonstrate. Abdulrahimzai immediately moved very close to James Medway in an aggressive and threatening manner. Thomas intervened between the two of them, and with his back to Mr. Rahim Ranzai, he said, "Relax, there's no problem here." His tone was calm, and he was clearly trying to defuse the situation. Thomas was not being aggressive, he was a peacemaker. Mr. Abdulrahimzai immediately switched his attention to Thomas. James Medway described him as getting into Thomas's face, squaring up to him in an aggressive way, and saying something threatening. James Medway described Thomas as then giving Mr. Abdulrahimzai a slap to the face, which he described as a stay-away slap. It was described as an open palm slap, but not full force. It cannot have been interpreted as a significant threat in the slightest. Mr. Abdulrahimzai responded by pulling out his knife and stabbing Thomas twice to the chest. Thereafter, he ran away. Thomas took a few steps before collapsing to the floor, losing consciousness very quickly. The entire incident lasted 26 seconds. Mr. Abdulrahimzai had never met Thomas or James before. Neither posed any threat to him. Thomas, who did nothing wrong that night at all, he was simply very unlucky to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and to meet Mr. Abdulrahimzai. After the stabbing, Abdulrahimzai fled James. He buried the knife in an unknown location and also burned the clothes he was wearing and travelled to Bournemouth town centre and took a bus to Poole. Abdulrahimzai was also caught on CCTV walking home, where he also stopped at a convenience store. In the meantime, the area around Old Christchurch Road and Horseshoe Common was cordoned off by police. Abdulrahimzai was identified by Dorset police after he found his mobile phone in Horseshoe Common on the morning of March 12th. At around 12:10 am on March 13th, 2022, his accommodation in Poole was visited by armed police.
Listen, during the early hours of Saturday the 12th of March 2022, an individual in Old Christchurch Road, Bournemouth, was stabbed and subsequently died. Inquiries have established that you have been responsible and therefore you're arrested on suspicion of murder. I've got to caution you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something later on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. The time is 00 and 11 hours. Your arrest is necessary to prevent any injury to yourself or others for the proper effective investigation of the offence.
When he was booked into the police station, he said he was 16 years old. He also told officers that he felt guilty, but later explained this related to what he thought his foster family would think of him. Abdulrahimzai had previously admitted manslaughter, but was charged with murder. He denied this charge, which had sparked an extensive trial at Salisbury Crown Court in January 2023. It was also confirmed that he was in fact 20 years old, and therefore any reporting restrictions surrounding his identity were lifted by a judge. Abdulrahimzai claimed he stabbed Thomas because he was in fear for his life, and was concerned he was an agent of the Taliban trying to kill him. He also claimed he ran away because James had a broken bottle, yet there was no evidence to support this claim. He also said he carried a knife in order to protect himself. Abdulrahimzai confirmed he struggled with his anxiety and PTSD from his experiences in a war-torn Afghanistan and experienced nightmares and blackouts. The jury found Abdulrahimzai guilty of murder, and Judge Dugdale sentenced him to life in prison with a minimum term of 29 years before being considered for parole. Judge Dugdale said he was at all times the aggressor that night, and by his behaviour created the situation that led to Thomas Roberts' death. He also paid tribute to Thomas's family, friends and girlfriend for their strength during the trial.
Thoughts are with the family and loved ones of Thomas Roberts, and I want to thank them for the dignified way that they have conducted themselves throughout the investigation and court proceedings. I would also like to thank all those from Dorset Police and the prosecution team who have worked tirelessly to achieve justice for Tommy and his family. Tommy's family and loved ones have suffered an unspeakable loss as a result of this horrific incident involving a knife. If anyone out there believes that someone is in a possession of a knife or offensive weapon, please contact the police immediately. Matters relating to the defendant's background and previous convictions have been shared with relevant agencies to ensure appropriate reviews are carried out and areas for learning identified. However, my focus and that of my teams for the last 9 months has been to gather the evidence relating to the brutal murder of Tommy and ensure that his killer has been brought to justice.
Following the verdict, the Home Office launched an investigation to see if there were any red flags mixed with him and how he was able to claim he was a child. His unprovoked actions during those 26 seconds radically changed the lives of so many people, and our thoughts go out to Thomas Roberts' family. Thank you very much for watching this YouTube video on the murder of Thomas Roberts. It was quite a difficult trial to cover, and one that will definitely stay with me during the course of my career, really. I hope you enjoyed the video, of course. If you do want me to do more, please put some comments below. please like this video just to support my channel, and of course subscribe. That'd be really much appreciated. And of course, hopefully I'll see you here again soon. Cheers.